and we set an exit goal, and they're marching towards that goal. And they've gone from 2 years ago thinking their business was worth $200,000 to now they're looking at a $10 million exit in 2022.
Welcome, high-performing entrepreneurs and business owners. Do you suffer from shiny object syndrome? Do you often feel scattered and distracted, making it hard to implement your plan with all the ideas and strategies coming at you? Do you often wonder if you have the right goals and plan? Welcome to Extraordinary Focus with David Wood, where we help you achieve way more in less time. Get the laser focus you need so you can double your business, double your impact in the world, and be an even more extraordinary entrepreneur and human. Let's dive in and stay tuned at the end for your gift. Welcome everybody to another episode of Extraordinary Focus with David Wood. And I have a guest today. His name is Joe Valley, and he helps people get top dollar by selling their online business. And a lot of what we're going to talk about is going to apply to your business, whether it's an online business, whether it's e-commerce or not e-commerce, but we're going to dive into it. Firstly, before I read a little bit about your bio, Joe, I want to say welcome. Thanks for being on the show.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me, David.
All right. Joe Valley's a serial entrepreneur, an EXITpreneur, advisor, and partner at Quiet Light, which is one of the leading online-focused merger and acquisition firms in the world. He has built, bought, and sold over half a dozen companies himself, and he's helped thousands of online entrepreneurs to achieve their goals. So, Joe, I met you at Blue Ribbon Mastermind, which is Ezra Firestone of Smart Marketer. He has a mastermind for rock star entrepreneurs. And we met at that event just before the pandemic hit. Is that right?
Yeah, we were at a beach somewhere. St. Petersburg, maybe?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
St. Pete's.
Yep.
And we had a good conversation and we connected. And I've been, I coach a lot of entrepreneurs. And one of the things that often comes up is exit strategy. How am I going to prep my business to get top dollar for it? What adds value, what doesn't, what plummets value? And so I'm excited to get into that with you. Is there anything that you want to add about your background that people should know about you so that they know they should listen very carefully?
Yeah, look, as you said, I've built, bought, sold over half a dozen of my own companies. I sold my last e-commerce business through Quiet Light back in 2010, in November 2010, then joined the company in early 2012. I took a little break there for about a year or so, went back to doing something that I used to do and realized, David, why I stopped doing it. Because I hated it. But I joined the company in 2012 because I had such a great experience in the process of selling my own. And since then, I've sold about 100 million in total transactions. And through the company, as a partner now, we've touched another $500 million. The industry is changing dramatically. We were just doing some numbers. In 2017, we closed a total of 17 million in transactions. In June of 2021, one of our advisors is scheduled to close $21 million in transactions. So we've grown a little bit. The industry has grown a little bit, and we've learned a lot along the way. The pleasure and pain of what we do, or what I do individually, I've had probably 8,000 one-on-one conversations. And I did this math in my head trying to figure this out as I was writing the book, but literally over 8,000 one-on-one conversations talking about, what brings and plummets value, what people should do to prepare their business for sale. And most of them don't, right? Nobody wants to do that work and think about the exit. They just wake up one day and say, all right, I'm done. I want to move on. And so I took those 8,000 conversations and I expanded it and I put it in the book, told some of my own personal success stories and some of my own failures and some of my clients' incredible success stories of their incredible exits and some of their epic failures. And I did change the names to protect the innocent, but everything really that somebody should know about an exit, aside from the emotional aspect of it, which is something else altogether, is there. It's a, Walker Dive would call it the ultimate guide to selling your online business. And again, it is online focused, but the lessons and information there in terms of deal structures, how much is going to be left over after taxes, how to negotiate with individual buyers, all that can really be applied to just about anybody that owns any kind of business.
Great. So the name of the book is The EXITpreneur's Playbook: How to Sell Your Online Business for Top Dollar by Reverse Engineering Your Pathway to Success by Joe Valley. And I'll give you the link now, and we'll give you the link at the end of the episode to you. You can get it at EXITpreneur.io. Is that right? Like entrepreneur, but exit. You want to
Yes.
spell it?
Well, the preneur part is hard. I had remedial English when I was in high school, and I spelled it wrong the first time. I was so proud of myself. I bought EXITpreneur.com and I was psyched, except I spelled it wrong. I spelled it UER instead of EUR. So
Right.
I ended up with .io. The owner of .com wanted $250,000 for the URL, so I passed on that.
Good move. So EXITpreneur is EXITpreneur, EXITpreneur.io. And I like that you just revealed that you are a partner now in the company, but you started as a customer. You went through the experience, and the experience was so good for you. You're like, hey, I want to be involved in this. And you also brought up that the industry is changing. I just heard at the Blue Ribbon Mastermind in Miami, they were saying that the value of online businesses has gone up during the pandemic. Is that true?
Yeah. A combination of businesses growing because of the pandemic, because more people, like my 84-year-old father, shops online now, right? And because of the aggregators that have come into the space. They realize, if you look at the typical private equity world, when they're buying a business that is a manufacturing company, they trade for fairly high multiples. And relatively speaking, an online business trades at a fairly low multiple. And so there are some aggregators that have come into the space that have raised billions of dollars, literally. And they're rolling up, starting with FBA, Fulfilled by Amazon businesses, buying them at what initially was 2 to 2.5 times discretionary earnings, bringing them into their portfolio. And because of the size of the portfolio, now it's immediately worth 10. So they're gaining some tremendous instant equity. The multiples are going up though, because there's more competition among the aggregators and the individual buyers, and everybody's maturing, right? When I started doing this in 2012, I think my average transaction size was like $125,000. Now we're doing transactions that are on the upper side of 25 million and the low side of 250. I think the average transaction value in 2020 was 1.7 million. It grows every year.
I understood that more people are buying online now, and so therefore the value of online businesses in general is going up. I didn't understand the aggregate point. I'd like to understand that. So aggregators, how would you define an aggregator?
Think of them as holding companies, or companies that are rolling up a number of individual brands, if you will. They're intelligent, well-educated, charming people that have gone out to investors, people with lots of money, and said, hey, look, here's the concept. I'm going to buy 100 FBA businesses. I'm going to buy them at 3 times.
What's an FBA business? I'm going to call you on all the acronyms.
Because I do it to everybody else, and more often than not, they can't say what they are. So you're probably going to catch me one of these times. FBA is Fulfilled by Amazon.
Okay.
And so they look for businesses that are majority Amazon based, right? They can be sold off of Amazon, but they're majority Amazon. And they buy them, again, at 2 to 3 times discretionary earnings. And when they get into that larger portfolio, they become more valuable because it's lower risk, right? The same thing if you're buying an individual company. If you buy a company, a lot of people say, well, I just want to start small because it's less risk. I'm just going to buy something for 100,000. Well, a business that is worth $1 million is actually less risky than a business is worth that is worth 100,000, because it's larger, more diverse, more well-established.
Right.
And so the same goes for somebody that buys 5 $1 million businesses. Now they have a business that's doing $1 million in discretionary earnings. That immediately gets a bump in the multiple versus a business that's just 100,000 in discretionary earnings.
Wow, you get 5 together. Now the multiple goes up because you got economies of scale, I assume, is one thing, but also you've got diversification of risk. Maybe one drops and dies, but the other 4 are going to be good.
Exactly. So there are lots of folks out there that have what's called a hero skill, and this could be on or off Amazon. It could be a SaaS company, wouldn't matter, or even a content site. That
SaaS being
software as a service.
Yep.
I'm
Okay. Thank
going
you.
to stop with the acronym. You're going to catch me one of these times. But
Keep
all of
going.
these
I want to
companies,
hear all the acronyms. We'll just define them for everybody.
all of these could have what we'd consider hero SKUs, right? So it's the same concept. If you have a business with 2 SKUs, but one is generating 85% of the revenue, it's a risk, right? Because if competition comes into play or the supply chains get disrupted, you're not going to have the inventory, or you're going to be dropping your price. So you take that one SKU and you diversify, and you end up with 15 or 20 over the course of a few years. Well, the aggregators are doing the same thing. They're buying up these individual brands and diversifying and, creating a booming industry. The first one was a company called 101 Commerce. Their goal was to buy 101 FBA businesses in 24 months.
Fulfilled by Amazon. Yep.
Fulfilled by Amazon. And the founder of the company was a guy named Richard Jolly Chandra, RJ. And he called me, tells me about it. And I said, "You are crazy. That is never going to happen." But he was a pioneer in the space. He didn't succeed at it. They bought about 13 of them. Their goal was actually, his personal goal was to never log on to a seller account. And that was just not a great, part of the business model. They ended up selling their portfolio to another aggregator. But the next one that came along was a company called Thrasio, Thras.io. And they did it right. They raised a lot of money. They bought them slowly and methodically, and now have a portfolio of about 100 FBA businesses. They're able to expand them off of Amazon because they've got the team and the resources to do that. They've raised over $1 billion now, and they have over $1 billion valuation. Wow. Someday they'll either go public or get bought for a much, much larger multiple. And the news of that kind of broke in the spring of 2020, when their initial valuation was $786 million. And what that did was had more investors giving them more money, but it also had other people that are also very smart and talented in the investment banker space going, well, I can do that, right? We have this affliction as entrepreneurs, right? I can do that. And that's what's happened. And so that now there are probably 85 aggregators. It's exploded in 12 months.
Thank you.
Problem is,
well, I don't want to go too far into the aggregator. Pop quiz. Do you know what SKU stands for?
Stock keeping unit.
Nice one. I had to look it up. So, I mean, SKU is pretty well known. It represents some code that tracks something. So I like that you pulled out Hero SKU, which I assume is a product that's doing really well. Yeah. I want to know how, let's say we've got a business owner with an online company, could be selling widgets, or it could be selling services, right? I mean, my company is an online company, since I do nothing face-to-face pretty much, and I sell coaching. So let's suppose you got someone running an online company. What do we need to do to get that company to be worth more to somebody else?
Well, there's lots that can be done. And the first thing I would actually tell somebody—
let's go with the top 3.
Okay. First, you got to set a goal, right? It's not make it worth as much as getting to somebody else. That's part of it. But the number one is you've got to set a goal. What is my exit goal? What am I striving towards? How much do I want to sell this business for? And then you've got to reverse engineer a path to where you are today. So if your goal is to sell the business for $10 million, you've got to figure out what it's worth today. And that's going through a full understanding, a full analysis of the P&L, the risk, the transferability, the growth, all of these things that buyers look at without even knowing it, and determining where you're at discretionary earnings wise today and where you're at valuation wise today. So if your goal is to exit for 10 million, but you're only doing $500,000 in discretionary earnings, your business might be worth $3.5 to $5 million, where you're halfway there. Sometimes going through that understanding of where you are today leads you to an immediate path to that exit. Because sometimes you're already growing at a rate where you might be there in 18 months, and all you have to do is make sure you trim the fat and make sure your investments are intelligent, short-term return on investment intelligence, the things that you do. So number one, set an exit goal. Number two, figure out where you are today. Number three, go through an education process of understanding what buyers are looking for. right? There's risk, there's growth, there's transferability, there's documentation, all of these things that buyers look at without even understanding it. We call them the 4 pillars of value, but there's a 5th one, and that's the individual person behind the business. They're the mortar that keeps the bricks and the pillars together. And so you've got to make sure that all of these pillars are strong, and make sure that you are your public facing person is a good person, and that you're building a business not to sell it just for maximum value for you, but you're building a business, a great business for a great buyer to take over at a great price. It's a bit of a mind shift. Great buyer to take over at a great price, and it's a great business, versus I just want to sell it for myself and I want to bank a whole bunch of money. When you think of others, it's going to come back to you creating a better business that buyers are going to get more excited about. That you've got to build that trust. And then you're going to go through the P&L, David, in great detail, and you're going to understand that, little things that can add up to a lot, like cash back credit card points. Everybody generally just slides that over to the personal account, and it's never on the P&L. But if you're spending, $5 million a year on advertising, you're getting 1% cash back, it adds up, right? So it should be in the add back schedule, because if you've got $30,000 in credit card rewards, in actual dollars, and your business is worth a 5-time multiple, that's appropriately adding $150,000 to the list price of your business.
What is an add back schedule?
So you run a profit and loss statement, and the bottom line is your net income.
Yeah.
That's not what your business is valued off of. It's not valued off of EBITDA either in this space, in the sub $25 million range. It's valued off of sellers' discretionary earnings. Most of these businesses, like the guys at Blue Ribbon Mastermind, it's owner operated, and they put themselves on salary. So if you're running a business and your net income is 0, but you pay yourself as an owner operator $500,000 a year, it doesn't mean your business is worth 0. Your owner's salary would be really obvious add back. And in the book, we talk about the 3 different levels of add backs, and there's 6 components to each level. And really it's level 3 that are the ones that you've got to really focus on and dig deep. So really obvious ones are, amortization, interest expense, owner's salary, the owner's car, personal things that run through the business, meals and entertainment, things of that nature. Okay, blowing your mind right now?
Yeah,
Okay?
because I as a sole trader, I deduct so much of my life on my tax return, and so at the end of the day, it doesn't look like a lot of money was made. But this add back schedule is critical. There's a whole bunch of stuff that fuels my lifestyle that's actually would be an asset of the business to anybody else.
No question, because the expenses that you run through the business for your own personal benefit do not carry forward to the new owner of the business. A really simple, obvious one is your mobile phone. It's a business expense because that's where you do your business today. When you transfer control of your business to me, I'm not going to, your mobile phone expense is not going to carry forward to me. I've already got one, right? But you do that on a level times 1,000, right? Because there are certain other expenses. Your trip down to Blue Ribbon Mastermind, you're a member of Blue Ribbon Mastermind, so you pay a monthly fee for it. You travel to the events twice a year. Those expenses do not carry forward to the new owner of the business. In fact, you have to qualify, you have to apply in order to be a member of a mastermind like Blue Ribbon. The new owner may choose to do that or not, but they, if they choose to, those things don't necessarily carry forward.
But the big picture is that there are things in the business that maybe won't show as profit, but could be added back. So that sounds very valuable.
It's incredibly valuable, David. I've seen valuations jump, $150,000, $200,000 with one line, one add back line. And these are things that individuals don't understand or do when they sell their business on their own. And they don't get it. One of the Blue Ribbon Mastermind members I talked to a couple of years ago, and he built a great brand. He's got a partner, and they like the business, but they don't feel like it's worth much, right? And we go through the analysis, and he was thinking maybe it was worth $300,000 or $400,000. It turned out it was probably worth about $1 million. So all of a sudden they get more passionate and excited and motivated about the business. And then we see where it's growing, and we set an exit goal, and they're marching towards that goal. And they've gone from 2 years ago thinking their business was worth $200,000 to now they're looking at a $10 million exit in 2022, right? So in a period of 3 years. And it's not because of anything I did necessarily. It was just helping and educating them. And by understanding where they were trying to go and where they were at today, that motivation and excitement and path to that goal becomes much more clear. The decisions they make are all targeted towards that exit goal. And I'm pretty sure that when they hit that exit goal in Q1 of 2022, they're going to move the goalpost because they're really enjoying the business.
Okay. So discretionary earnings are, could you say it's the earnings on the profit and loss plus these things in the add back schedule? Is that roughly?
Yeah, it's exactly how it works. But the simpler term, we used to call it owner benefit, which is much easier to understand. So what's the owner benefit to David Wood and his business?
Yeah.
You've got your home office that you're writing off. You traveled to Miami last week and you spent an extra 5 days there. These are personal things, expenses that don't carry forward to a new owner. They're also things that, you're launching a new podcast, for instance, and you're making an initial one-time investment in the launch of that podcast, in the development of the creative and things of that nature. That expense doesn't carry forward every year. It's a one-time expense in this calendar year. So that would be an add back because it's a one-time expense that does not carry forward. If you redesigned your website every 5 years and you spend 25 grand each time, it doesn't happen every year. So at the very least, it's a partial add back.
Right. So I might have taken the expense up front for tax purposes, but some of these things could be amortized more for calculating discretionary earnings.
Right. And it's complex and nauseating and can make your eyes bleed. So I put it.
And it can make you more money if someone like Joe is handling it for you. Okay. I want to talk, let's get into these pillars. And maybe we can use my business because I want to benefit from this. And maybe we could use my business as an example. So the pillars that I wrote down were risk. And I got a lot out of you just rattling them off. Risk, transferability, growth, documentation. And then the fifth one was public facing person.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So,
and then I imagine earnings would be, I would call that a pillar too.
Yeah, well, so there's two different things that buyers look at. I mean, obviously they look at the dollars and cents. That's just math and logic, right? But the valuation of a company, I would say, is 10% math and logic and 90% art. And the art comes into understanding what buyers want, what brings or plummets value. And they always focus on risk, growth, transferability, and documentation. These four things can make or break the value of a company.
Okay, great.
And so if we focus in on you, there's one of those pillars that is problematic. You know what it is?
Transferability.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Your business is David Wood.
Yep.
So how do we transfer, your charisma, your charm, your personality, your experience, your company is you. So you'd have to long-term look at how to make yourself replaceable. Or, David, if you love the coaching aspect of your business, but you hate all the other things, then you remain, with the company as a coach, but you don't have to do all the social media stuff and banking stuff and all the other ugly stuff that you feel like you're just grinding it out, and you do what you love, which is helping people. Then you stay on afterwards. Or at the very least, you stay on for a transition period afterwards. I sold a prepper company once. You know what a prepper company is? You know what preppers are?
No.
Okay. It's doomsday type mentality, right? That's interesting in 2021, but they're people that are writing content and selling products that are all around the apocalypse is coming, and you need to be prepared for it. It's storing gasoline in 55-gallon drums on your property and having weapons and having food that's going to last for 3 years, that kind of thing. It was all done by one individual. And of course, buyers were worried that the audience loved her and loved her background and story, and every new article came out from her. And so there was a concern there in the transferability, just like your business would. So she ended up having to stay on for 12 months only as a figurehead, only had to approve each article that was written because her name was going to be on most of them. And what they did was they slowly started to introduce a new individual or individuals that would become the name and face of the business. Instead, they went with caricatures because that could easily transfer. In the book, we talk about, instead of cooking with Jennifer, maybe it's cooking with Jennifers, right? And it's caricatures or people named Jennifer instead of cooking with David, if you will. So the transferability aspect of your business would be the biggest challenge.
Oh, that's interesting. Coaching with Davids. I
go.
like that. So yeah, so in my business, I imagine I'd get other coaches and it'd be less about David Wood doing it and it'd be more about the David Wood methodology, right?
Yes.
So to transfer. All right. So that's transferability. Documentation, I assume, is pretty clear. I have a training document for my social media person. We were talking about that just before we started. That was a lot of work. It's detailed every single thing that she needs to do to take this interview and chop it up and put it out on social media. So I'm assuming clear documentation is better than fuzzy documentation, right?
Yeah. And you would think it's common sense, right? But I would say that 75 to 80% of the profit and losses that I look at are a total mess. They're using cash accounting instead of accrual accounting. And in a business that if it's got physical products, it must be accrual accounting. You got to flip it that way. Even a content or SaaS business that's growing rapidly should be done in accrual accounting, because if you're doing cash, you're not going to capture that growth in the.
Did you say a content business or a SaaS business?
Yeah.
SaaS being software as a service, and a content business would be something selling like information.
Yeah. I sold, it could be anything. I sold a content site dedicated to soap operas for, just under $9 million a few years ago. And it was growing like crazy, but it was a cash accounting instead of accrual. So the documentation is, SOPs, records, things of that nature. But the most important part is clear financials, not clean, because you're all going to run personal stuff through the business. I do it as well. It's clear so that your advisor or you can identify all the add backs in there and get to the true seller's discretionary earnings. So you understand where you are today in order to get to your goal.
And what about the pillar of growth?
Yeah, that's all about timing, right? So you don't want to sell the business when it's on a downward trend or even flat, right? You want to sell it while it's still growing and there's still some growth left for the new owner of the business. You don't want to sell it when it's at 99.9% of its capacity. An example would be we're both on, our computers now, and there's a computer monitor in front of us. So you could have privacy screens, right? So the company that had 17 SKUs, I think in terms of privacy screens, different sizes and shapes. And 6 of them had been launched in the 6 months prior to listing the business for sale. They already represented 20% of the trailing 12-month revenue because they'd grown so much. Excuse me, David. That's built-in growth, right? All the new owner had to do was let time pass. But the old owner of the business also identified another 22 SKUs that could be expanded. This is different size monitors, privacy screens for your phone, that kind of thing. So that's growth opportunities for the new owner of the business. And the business had been growing consistently over time.
Love it. So that's the sweet spot. You need to have already demonstrated growth. You're currently in a growth mode, but you haven't exhausted the growth. There's lots of potential.
Absolutely.
That makes sense. And what about risk in my business? How would one identify and diversify or reduce the risk for, say, a coaching-based business?
Yeah. So again, you are part of the risk. What happens if you just decide you're done? That's the risk.
Or get really sick or something like that.
Or get really sick or something like that. You could also have, an example of risk with a SaaS business would be that, let's say you've got 400 people subscribing to your product, your SaaS product on coaching, right? Or your newsletter on coaching. But 378 of them come from one company that is paying for all of those individual subscriptions. That's risk, right? Because you've got a hero client versus a hero SKU.
Yep.
That's definitely risk. Or if you look back at that FBA, right, fulfilled by Amazon space, the risk there is that you don't own the customer.
Yeah.
Right.
And Amazon can shut down your company, shut down your account in a blink. Boom.
Yeah. There's less fear of that these days because there's lots of aggregators that are pretty damn smart, and they know that Amazon's really only going to do that if you screw up or you cheat or you lie or do something.
Or someone else is trying to set you up.
I have seen that happen. I have seen that happen, and that's unfortunate. It causes a temporary blip. But man, that's stressful.
Yeah.
That's stressful. I've seen it happen.
So we've got risk, transferability, growth documentation, and then the public facing person. I imagine because I've been around for 20 years, I've been a semi-public figure. It's not as risky as if I would have just appeared on the scene for, with skeletons in the closet kind of thing. Is that?
Yeah. So you just got to think about, the fact that when you and I were kids, there was no social media, right? We could say and do anything stupid and it's not recorded, right?
Right.
Thank goodness. Today, it's all recorded. People are being kicked off of American Idol because of, something stupid that they did, 8 years ago.
Yep.
Celebrities are being dethroned instantly because of something extremely stupid that they did. It's all recorded now. I had a client, this is an extreme example. I had a client we listed his business for sale, and great business. And I get an email within 24 hours. And it says, "Hey, Joe, is this so-and-so the owner of the business? Period. If it is, I'm not interested." And he shared a link with me, and I clicked the link. He's on the child sex offender registry. Like, okay, that is something I missed. And then I have to have a conversation with this individual about it and hear his story and background and make a decision whether or not, to continue listing the business for sale. So if you've got skeletons in your closet and you're working with an advisor, get ugly fast and tell them about it. If you are just simply very political, you might want to tone down the political stuff while you're listing your business for sale, because it's easy to eliminate half your buyers by saying something really stupid. Or maybe it's not stupid, but it's going to offend half the buyers. And you need to be somebody that people trust more than anything else. Full disclosure, build a great business for a great buyer to take over at a great price. They need to trust you. When they trust you, not only will they pay you more, but they'll give you a better deal structure as well.
Joe, this is amazing. Before we wrap up, I got so much out of this. I got these pillars written down here. Is there anything else burning that you think people should know as they start to create a plan to exit their business?
Yeah, don't wait. Ezra's friends with a guy named Mike Jackness. And Mike said to me one time, "Joe, I knew what to do and I was going to get to it someday. And then I woke up and someday was here." And then he wasn't fully prepared to exit. 3 of his brands were unsellable because of the transferability issue. 1 was sellable. So we sold 1 of his brands and now he's still operating the other 3. So he didn't achieve his goals. He knew what to do and he was going to get to it someday. And then he woke up and Sunday was here. Don't wait. The book itself it's there to help. It's a resource guide. It will give you everything David and I have talked about in, 30 minutes, times 1,000. And you're not going to read it all at once because there are parts of it that will make your eyes bleed, but they're the most important parts. You've risked everything, blood, sweat, and tears to build a business, and it's likely your most valuable asset. You should know what it's worth, and you should know what is going to bring or plummet value and what buyers are looking for. It's all there in the book.
Awesome. And how can people find out more about you if they want to work with the great Joe Valley?
Thank you, David. Find me on LinkedIn, obviously, or the company that I'm a partner at is quietlight.com. We focus on online businesses only, and we only represent the sell side. And just buy the book. Honestly, it's all there in the book as well. And I'm not making any money off the book, folks. It's an educational tool that's going to help sort of raise the bar of individual business owners' ability to sell their businesses easier with better deal structure and for maximum value.
Wonderful. Joe, and get the book, guys. EXITpreneur, PRENEUR.com, EXITpreneur.com, .io, EXITpreneur.io. Go and grab the book. It'll be a really great resource for you guys. And then if you want to go further and really get your business prepped for sale, have a conversation with Joe. He's a great guy. Joe, thanks for being on the show.
Appreciate it, David.
You've been listening to Extraordinary Focus with David Wood. Now, to achieve way more in less time, to double your business and your impact in the world, and to be an even more extraordinary entrepreneur and human, make sure you get your gift basket. It includes a cheat sheet to double your focus, a short video to implement the steps, and a free focus audit to identify the #1 focus leak in your business and how to plug it. To get all 3 of these goodies, just go to myfocusgift.com. If you've gotten value out of this episode, tell your friends. And nothing says keep up the good work, David, like a review, which helps us climb in the rankings and reach more listeners. Now, let's be extraordinary.